align the spirit of our nation with the letter of our Constitution, so that obedience to the Constitution is driven by hope and not fear. BBI intends to complete what was started when we adopted the 2010 Constitution and promised to change it later. In fact, the BBI is the driver of the first amendments to the 2010 Constitution. And BBI is not a one-size-fits-all that promises to settle all the constitutional questions through a singular amendment. It is the start of a continuous process of constitution making for our young nation. Even our founding fathers had to freeze certain thorny issues at independence in the hope that subsequent constitution-making processes would resolve them. Their logic then and my rationale today is a constitution is a living document and it cannot be rigid. And to build our nationhood, we must embrace the ideal of a continuous process of constitution making. BBI will not resolve all our constitutional grievances of the day. It is just a first. It only attempts to make the 2010 Constitution better. And as we improve in it, we must remember that going into the future there will be a second amendment and a third, and many more as our young nation grows. So we must therefore be guided by the spirit of the First Amendment to the 2010 Constitution as we deliberate the BBI proposals. It is a discerning spirit that seeks to align our national aspirations with the letter of our Constitution. And to be discerning, the spirit of the First Amendment has to be a questioning. The spirit of the First Amendment is also a spirit of inclusion, co-creation, and justice. On the spirit of inclusion, it does not augur well when at the top you have only two individuals in the form of the President and the Deputy President. More so in an ethnically diverse nation as ours. This creates an environment of political exclusion, resulting in the cyclical violence that we have witnessed in every election. We can increase these positions in order to make the leadership of the country that much more inclusive. This, by the way, was the Kofi Annan consensus of February 2008 that gave us peace. And if it worked then, it means there was something right about it. And yes, 5 positions at the apex of the executive means that some people will be left out. And that is why BBI proposes to introduce the position of leader of the official opposition that was successful under former constitutional dispensations. If the opposition carries a large portion of the country and the winner in an election carries another, isn't there therefore a compelling argument? And is it not in the national interest to give official recognition to the opposition and support his office in the form of a shadow cabinet? An expanded executive and constitutional recognition of the opposition will reduce the notion of political scarcity and the propensity for election violence every 5 years. Similarly, it will enhance the doctrine of a constitution of hope over a constitution of fear. The spirit of the First Amendment is also a spirit of co-creation, and this is demonstrated by the system of devolution I talked about earlier, which is one of the brilliant designs of the 2010 Constitution. The devolved system was engineered by the framers of our Constitution to be a system where the national government co-creates solutions with county governments. And the fight against COVID-19 has demonstrated the power of this partnership. The First Amendment therefore proposes to strengthen this model of co-creation by doing 3 things. 1, increasing funding allocated to counties by the national government from 15% to 35%. More money to the counties means more money to the people. 2, creating a ward fund. And the intention here is to take development as close to the people as we can. But the third element of co-creation is probably the most compelling. We cannot co-create a devolved system if it is just dominated by men. Devolution without women is like a seedless field where nothing grows. And that is why the First Amendment proposes a 50-50 sharing of Senate by men and women. If 50% of Senate will be made up of women, their contribution to a robust devolved system will be felt. And this means that they will control half of the Senate decisions, including how the upscale 35% of national resources sent to the counties will be spent. And that is why we must ask the following question. Who loses if women control 50% of the Senate? Its resources and its decisions. Is strengthening devolution through a 50-50 co-creation formula between men and women good for the country? I believe so. And does this formula support a constitution of fear, or does it create a constitution of hope? The spirit, therefore, of this First Amendment is also a spirit of justice. And by this I mean justice in representation and justice under the law. Justice in representation is also about inclusion. Every Kenyan must have a just and fair avenue for participation in the actions of his or her government. This is not a luxury. It is at the core of our democratic ethos. And that is why the First Amendment proposes to align in our representation model to ensure that everyone is accommodated justly. Justice under the law is about the judiciary as the third arm of the government. And to ensure that the will of justice spins fairly for all, and to reduce the distance between the disadvantaged and the law, the judiciary must in one way or another be subjected to the will of the people. It must have an oversight body that is a direct expression of the spirit of the nation. If the executive and parliament, which are also arms of government, are a direct expression of the will of the people, who is the judiciary accountable to? Where are the judicial checks and balances located outside of the Judicial Service Commission, led and dominated by officers of the court? The First Amendment proposes the setting up of an independent office of a judiciary ombudsman to oversight judicial action on behalf of the people of Kenya. And with this formula, the people win and the distance between the disadvantaged and the law is reduced. So, fellow Kenyans, as I end my address today, I appeal to all within our nation to unshackle our nationhood from bondage of fear and to boldly seize this moment of opportunity and hope. It is a time to embrace hope. In a triumph of hope over fear, in March of 2018, I began the journey of improving our nationhood by extending a handshake to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. The handshake was a temporary solution to a long-term search. Our joint intention was to have BBI provide us with a roadmap for a long-term solution. And even then, this solution was not to become an end in itself. It was meant to be a continuous work in progress. More so because at the core of the handshake were the words of Prophet Isaiah, where he declared, "Come, let us reason together." This mantra of rivals reconciling and reasoning together in the interest of the nation is what led to BBI. And if this handshake endures, I anticipate it will become a new normal, and many future BBIs and handshakes will continue to refine our nationhood and ensure that we dwell in unity, peace, and liberty. Indeed, in pondering this initiative of reconciliation, We are also further inspired by the teachings of St. Francis of Assisi, when he said, start by doing what is necessary. Then it will lead you to what is possible. And before you know it, you will find yourself doing the impossible. The handshake was necessary as a first step to national healing and constitutional alignment. BBI was construed as a possible next step towards reinforcing our nationhood. And once we accomplish the necessary and the possible, then the impossible effortlessly becomes our reality. I plead on to all Kenyans, especially our political leaders, let us not lose this opportunity. Let us take full advantage of this opportunity to further strengthen our nationhood, our unity, and the prosperity of our people. So, fellow Kenyans, as we come to the end of what has been an incredibly difficult year, let us exercise caution, more so as we interact with family. As we seek sanctuary in family, let us remember that COVID is real. Men, women, old and young are dying. The best gift that we can give to our loved ones this Christmas is the gift of life today and the promise of hope and a joyful tomorrow. Fellow Kenyans, Merry Christmas. Stay home, stay safe, and together let us pray for a new year that sees an end to COVID-19 and delivers us a bright and prosperous 2021. May God bless you all, and may He bless this great land and nation. Asanteni sana. Thank you.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Rais. Naomba kwa heshima Mheshimiwa Rais niweze kukualika uweze kuwatunuku baadhi ya Wakenya ambao wamefanya bora katika nyanja mbalimbali. Watakaoandamana na Mheshimiwa Rais ni mkuu wa utumishi wa umma Bwana Joseph Kenywa, Waziri Dr. Fred Matiang'i, mkuu wa utumishi wa umma, na wale wanasaidia kwenye hii ratiba. Wengine naomba tubaki tumeketi kwenye jukwaa.